Not long ago, the island of Sodor's engines had met some of the rudest lorries imaginable. They were sent away after various incidents that not only damaged them, but their reputation as well. However, one lorry had been permitted to stay after the events. She was the fourth lorry that arrived. Her name was Meg. Meg was the only lorry that showed she could get along with the engines without complaint or incident. The engines were skeptical at first, but after seeing that she meant no harm and just wanted to be hard-working like them, they warmed up to her. Meg was given a new coat of paint after Sir Topham Hatt purchased her. She wanted to be painted blue like Thomas, since she had helped him and the others on his branch line. Many of the engines on the branch line got on well with Meg. Mavis, Percy, Toby, and even Terence. However, there's one engine that Meg had yet to meet, and that was Daisy, the diesel rail car. She was a highly sprung sort, and unlike most diesels, she was very nice to the steam engines. But she still can be proven difficult to work with at times. She's much happier giving a tour to passengers on the branch, but she shudders at the thought of pulling milk tankers or trucks of flour. Today was no exception. Daisy was fussing with her driver over having to pull the milk again. "I shan't!" she wailed. "I shan't!" "If the Fat Controller tells you you must, then you must," reasoned the driver. "But Fitter's orders," she said. "Fitter's orders nothing," snapped the driver. "You should be more concerned about the Fat Controller's orders after your little stunt with Percy." "Well, why can't he pull it instead?" she quizzed. "Because he's too busy, unlike you, who's fussing over one milk wagon," grumbled the driver, who looked as if he was ready to explode. "Maybe I could help," said a voice. It was Meg the lorry. She had been watching from afar the whole time. "A lorry!" shrieked Daisy. The driver was sick of Daisy's complaining, so he obliged by unloading the milk bottles from Daisy's wagon and into Meg's flatbed. Daisy watched as Meg carefully rolled down the road. "Well, that's one problem solved," sighed the driver. "Now are you happy?" "Absolutely not!" screeched Daisy. "I will not have my job taken by a lorry!" The driver just groaned. Meanwhile, Meg was enjoying herself on the road. She was making good time, and even honked at Terence when she passed by his field. When she reached the dairy factory, the dairy manager was most surprised. "I was expecting a diesel," he said. "Well, she had a little problem with her springs, so I filled in for her today," explained Meg. "Well, I'm glad you did," he chuckled. "It'd be sundown by the time Daisy brought the milk. She's always late." I'm just glad to be useful, said Meg. When the milk was unloaded from her flatbed, she sped away to the bus depot. I like that lorry, said one of the dairymen. Much easier to unload, on time, and never complains. So the dairy manager phoned the fat controller to put in a good word. Once Meg reached the depot, the fat controller was there waiting for her. Oh dear, she thought. I hope I'm not in trouble. But she wasn't. I heard about your switch with Daisy, and today you proved to me just how helpful and clever you are, and I am most impressed. Really? Oh, thank you, sir, said Meg as she breathed a sigh of relief. The dairy manager tells me how splendid of a job you did on your run today, he continued. So I'm giving Daisy's milk run to you. That way there's no more complaining and no more lateness. Your run starts tomorrow. Thank you, sir, said Meg excitedly. And with that, Sir Topham Hatt went back to his car. Congratulations on the promotion, said Bertie. You must have done well if you beat an engine in reliability. Thanks, Bertie. I'm glad I have an actual job now. It makes me feel like I fit in. Well, I'd say you've already fit in. Practically everyone on the branch likes you, including me and Terence. That has to count for something. You're right. This'll prove to everyone that I'm not there to replace them. And she went to sleep. Back at the Farquhar sheds, though, was a different story. Do you know what happened to me this morning? Growled Daisy as she pulled in next to the shed. No, what? Thomas said sarcastically. He was not in the mood for Daisy's complaining. I had my milk taken by a lorry. Imagine that, she seethed. Well, you'll be happy since you're not taking it any more. Meg's taking over for you now, said Toby. What? Who said? Exclaimed Daisy. Terence, replied Toby. He said he heard it from Bertie. Daisy was speechless. I thought you'd be happy, peeped Percy. I was, but I didn't want it to go to a lorry of all things, she spluttered. I don't know what you have against Meg. She's really nice once you get to know her, protested Percy. Maybe to you. You said those lorries were trying to take over Sodor, and they're still trying to now. Those three were sent away to the mainland, cut in Toby. Meg is different. Maybe now, but just wait. She'll take your flour next, then your mail, and maybe your branch line. Rubbish, hissed Thomas. Meg is harmless. Daisy didn't listen, though, and was too set in her ways. That lorry is nothing but a thief, and I refuse to stand by and let it happen again. The other engines just ignored her. They knew better than to listen to such silly nonsense. The next day, Daisy was waiting at a crossing. She was taking passengers on a tour of the branch line. Usually she was happy taking passengers, but her thoughts were being clouded by ways to pay Meg out. Suddenly she heard an unfamiliar horn. It was Meg toiling down the line. Now's my chance to give her a piece of my mind, she thought. Meg appeared at the crossing and stopped since she had time to spare. "Hello again! You need my help?" teased Meg. "Most certainly not!" snapped Daisy. "Cool your engine," said Meg. "I was only joking." "Let's get one thing clear," growled Daisy. "I don't like it when people take my job and try to replace me. The other engines told me all about how you lorries tried to take our jobs when you came to the island, and I won't stand for it." Meg was taken aback. "I'm so sorry that I decided to help you when you were wailing over having to pull one singular wagon," retorted Meg. "How dare you speak to me that way?" hissed Daisy. "You'll get yours." Meg just sped past, leaving a trail of exhaust that made Daisy cough. Daisy was furious. At that point, she knew she had to make a plan to get rid of Meg once and for all. The next morning, Daisy woke up extra early. So early, in fact, she knew Meg wouldn't be up to foil her plan. She coupled up to a wagon and oiled over to the farms to collect the milk. When she got there, Farmer Colette was surprised to see her. "I was expecting a lorry, not a diesel," she said, confused. She couldn't start, you see. There's been a change of plans, so the fat controller left it up to me," explained Daisy. "Well, okay," said Farmer Colette. And she said no more. She loaded the milk bottles into the wagon, and Daisy sped off to the dairy factory. "Slow down," she called, "or you'll churn it into butter." But Daisy didn't hear. She was too lost in her thoughts trying to prove a point. The milk bottles rattled as she sped along the tracks. "I'll prove to that stupid lorry that I'm more reliable than her," she smirked, thinking she was clever. But she wouldn't be thinking that for long. A huge bend was coming up ahead. Daisy was too busy congratulating herself to notice the danger ahead, until it was too late. She flew off the tracks into a muddy ditch. Glass shattered and milk spilled everywhere. Daisy's pride was in pieces. She didn't think herself clever anymore. In fact, she felt rather silly. "That's what you get for speeding, you silly diesel," scolded the driver. "If you had gotten any faster, you would have had an even nastier accident." The driver tried to open the door to go and get help, but the mud was too thick, so he was trapped inside. Suddenly, Daisy heard a horn in the distance. It was Meg the lorry. She was starting her daily round of the milk run. She stopped when she saw Daisy in the ditch. "What happened to you?" asked Meg. "Oh, thank heavens!" exclaimed Daisy. "I never thought I'd be happy to see you. I derailed into this muddy ditch, and now neither me or my driver can get out." "Don't worry, I'll get help," called Meg, and she toiled down the road to the dairy factory. As the manager was waiting for her on the platform so his men could unload the milk, she stopped and told them about Daisy's accident. The dairy manager phoned for the breakdown train, and it was soon on its way. Thomas came with cranes, as well as the fat controller. He was most annoyed. "Daisy, what were you thinking, speeding down the line like that? And look at the mess! Why is there glass and milk everywhere?" Because she wanted to pay Meg out for taking her job. I heard her leave this morning, grumbled Thomas. What? So you've been giving her trouble? Boomed the Fat Controller. I only gave her trouble because she stole my job, protested Daisy. I gave her that job as a reward for her unselfishness, and to save complaints from yourself. I thought this would be an easy enough compromise, but I was wrong, scolded the Fat Controller. Daisy quivered in fear. But I thought because of all the other stories I heard from the others that she was
like the other lorries. Of course not. I wouldn't have kept her if she was. Maybe this'll teach you to think before you act.
Daisy just looked down at her buffers in shame. We told you, chuckled Thomas. Oh, shut up, Thomas, growled Daisy.
I hope you like a busy schedule, Thomas, because while Daisy's off to be repaired, I need you, Annie, Clarabelle, Toby, Henrietta, and Bertie working together on the clock, boomed the Fat Controller.
Thanks a lot, muttered Thomas angrily. This time it was Daisy's turn to laugh. At the repair shed, the workers were doing the best they could to bang out the dents in Daisy's buffer beam, when all of a sudden Meg rolled up. What are you doing here? Asked Daisy. Just wanted to see if you were okay. You took quite a fall, said Meg. Well, I thought you'd be here to laugh at me. Of course not. You got hurt. I thought for certain you were going to leave me after the way I treated you. Well, I thought about it, but then I thought it wouldn't make me any better than you. Daisy just looked down at her damaged buffers in shame. Besides, what better way to rub it in your face by saving you from another sticky situation? Teased Meg. You're not wrong there, chuckled Daisy. I'm sorry I was so mean to you. I shouldn't have assumed you were horrid like those other three. That's all right. Just happy to help, replied Meg. Friends? Friends. And from that day on, Daisy learned not to call Meg horrid, because she'll never know when she needs saving from her again.